humanity laughed when the Galactic Council demanded Earth's capitulation. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The ozone-heavy air inside the Galactic Council chamber hummed like a storm trapped behind glass, every beam of blue-white light flickering across polished metal floors that felt colder than they should have under Captain Elias Ward's boots. He stood alone in the center podium, a single human silhouette surrounded by towering alien delegates whose eyes glowed like distant stars. He could smell the ionized charge from the defensive field that shimmered around the dais, a reminder that he was considered a dangerous primitive here. The Council High Speaker, a 3-meter-tall crystalline being whose body refracted light like a broken prism, leaned forward and activated a hovering hologram. It spun, showing Earth, a blue marble suspended in a field of red warning sigils. Human representative, the speaker intoned, its voice vibrating like grinding stone, your species has been judged reckless, volatile, and morally incompatible with galactic peace. Effective immediately, Earth must capitulate. Complete disarmament. Full governance transfer. Your world will be placed under Council stewardship. Every alien present watched him with the same expectation, as if waiting for him to break, to kneel, to beg. Elias felt the stillness settle in his ribs, that quiet pressure he'd learned long ago on battlefields where the only warmth was from burning metal. His pulse thudded once, steady. He inhaled the scent of cold plasma, the faint metallic tang that always clung to alien architecture. And then, he laughed. Not loud. Not mocking. Just a low, disbelieving breath that fogged in the chamber's chilled air. A ripple of outrage burst through the amphitheater. A dozen species hissed in unison, others recoiled as if laughter itself was a weapon. The High Speaker's light fractured violently. Is this amusement? It demanded. Elias lifted his gaze, calm, tired, unshaken. You're asking 8 billion people to bow because you think fear works on us. That's why I laughed. Murmurs rose like a growing tide. A reptilian warlord slammed a fist on its desk, metal screeching. Human, do you misunderstand? This is not negotiation. This is ultimatum. Yeah, Elias said softly, that's the funny part. His mind flicked through memories, dust storms in Nevada training fields, the heat of burning hull plates during the Europa breach, the way humans always crawled out of rubble they had no business surviving. The Council thought fear would break Earth. They had no idea fear was a language humanity had mastered centuries ago, and learned to stand anyway. The High Speaker rotated its massive crystalline body, projecting files of human wars, disasters, failures. Your species destroys itself repeatedly, it declared. Your resilience is inefficient. You rebuild what should remain ashes. Elias exhaled through his nose. That's called hope. The word hung strangely in the sterile chamber, as if it didn't belong among the equations and treaties carved into the walls. Delegates shifted, confused. Hope was not a strategic concept in most galactic cultures. To them, survival was calculation, not conviction. A younger alien, small, silver-skinned, with bioluminescent glyphs pulsing along her throat, leaned forward. Her voice was barely a whisper. Human, you do not fear extinction. Elias looked up at the hologram of Earth, spinning slowly, oceans glowing under simulated sunlight. We fear it every day, he said. We just don't let it tell us who we are. Silence followed. Heavy. Puzzled. Unsettled. And in that silence, something shifted. Not victory, not yet, but recognition. A trace of unease flickered through the war delegates. They'd expected a plea. A surrender. Not dignity. Not humor. Not that strange, stubborn humanity they'd heard rumors about but never witnessed up close. Then alarms flared across the chamber, sharp, electric, crimson. A tactical officer sprinted in, breathless. "High Speaker, an unknown fleet is approaching Earth's orbit." Dozens of delegates turned sharply. Elias didn't move. He simply closed his eyes for a brief second, listening to the rising hum of energy fields, the low vibration of panic in the chamber. He knew that sound. It was the sound of fate tightening its grip. The speaker's voice cracked like crystal under pressure. "Human! What has your world done?" Elias finally opened his eyes, and for the first time his expression was not calm, there was steel beneath it. "We didn't start this," he said. "But we're very good at finishing what others begin." The chamber lights flickered, casting long shadows. And the council realized something. They should have feared all along. Humanity hadn't laughed out of arrogance. Humanity had laughed because they had already decided they would not bow. The chamber alarms kept wailing, a rising metallic howl that ricocheted across the crystalline walls and cast erratic crimson pulses over the delegates' faces. Captain Elias Ward did not flinch. He simply straightened his shoulders and let the sound wash over him like a memory he had heard 1,000 times on human battlefields. Across the council tiers, alien representatives scrambled in confusion, speaking in overlapping frequencies that crackled through the compsphere. The High Speaker attempted to regain control, its crystal body refracting the alarm lights into sharp, broken rainbows. "Silence! Order!" the speaker thundered, but even its amplified voice trembled under the weight of the unknown threat. A hologram materialized in the center of the chamber, rotating in a jittering red grid. Elias recognized the Earth perimeter markers instantly. They blinked with an intensity that suggested something was moving fast. Very fast. A council guard, small and copper-skinned with quivering tendrils, sprinted toward the speaker. "High Speaker, sensors confirm multiple vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel near the human homeworld. Their configuration does not match any registered species. They are heavily shielded." The council erupted. Some shouted accusations. Others hid behind defensive barriers. A few stared directly at Elias, as if he had personally summoned the fleet with a laugh. The High Speaker rotated toward him. "Human, explain!" Elias felt the cold air thicken against his throat. He had served long enough to recognize the shape of trouble, and this was not an invasion they had planned, provoked, or even expected. But he also knew that showing fear here would be a gift to every species hoping to put humanity on its knees. So he steadied his voice. "If those ships are headed for Earth, they are not ours," he said. "But do not mistake that as weakness." A reptilian general lunged to the edge of its podium. "Your world will fall in minutes against an unknown fleet." Elias kept his eyes firm. "My world has been fighting the unknown since it first learned how to stand upright." Silence cut through the chaos, brief and sharp. And then the chamber's gravity shifted as the hologram zoomed in. 3 massive ships now hovered above Earth's orbit, their hulls dark as obsidian and embossed with symbols none of the delegates recognized. They looked older than anything in the council's database, like relics carved from forgotten stars. The High Speaker's light dimmed. "They are initiating planetary scans." Elias watched the rotating hologram, his jaw tight. The ship's energy signatures pulsed in rhythmic waves that shook the chamber floor. He could almost hear it, an alien heartbeat echoing across the void. But what made the delegates recoil was not the ships. It was the response. Earth's orbit flickered with pale blue barriers. Defensive satellites lit up. Ion cannons powered on. Shield lattices pulsed to life like a planetary heartbeat of their own. Earth had seen the incoming threat before the Council had even finished arguing. The High Speaker's crystalline plates clattered together in raw disbelief. Humanity possesses no technology capable of sustaining a barrier of this magnitude. Elias did not smile, but something in his eyes cooled. "You do not know what we possess." Delegates leaned forward. Some in panic. Some in awe. Some in something else, respect, perhaps, or the earliest seed of fear. The silver-skinned young delegate from earlier whispered, "How did your people detect the fleet so quickly?" Elias exhaled, letting the truth settle like dust. Because Earth has been preparing for the day the sky opened since before we even had the tech to defend against it. We learned the hard way that danger does not send invitations. The chamber screens crackled again as Earth transmitted a message on an open channel. A faint, static rap voice filled the air. Unidentified fleet, this is Earth Defense Network. You are approaching sovereign space. Identify yourselves immediately, or defensive actions will commence. The Council froze. Earth was not pleading for help. Earth was not consulting the Council. Earth was issuing its own ultimatum. The High Speaker turned its burning fractal gaze to Elias. This is madness. If the fleet attacks, your species will be annihilated. Elias finally looked up at the enormous hologram of Earth, oceans glinting under artificial council light. Not quietly, he said. A hush fell through the chamber, slow and spreading, as if every alien present felt the shifting gravity, not from the fleet, but from something else rising on the horizon. Something they had underestimated. The speaker's voice cracked like splitting rock. Human, what have you brought to our galaxy? Elias took one step forward, the cold metal floor humming beneath his boots. Not conquest, he said. Not obedience. His eyes held a steady fire. We brought a species that refuses to kneel. The alarms wailed again, the hologram flickered, and the unknown fleet began charging weapons. Far above Earth, light gathered like the first breath before a storm. The chamber lights dimmed as the unknown fleet's weapons charged, their energy signatures vibrating through the council floor like a distant thunder that did not belong to this part of the galaxy. Captain Elias Ward stood perfectly still in the center of the arena, watching the hologram above Earth ripple with crimson warning bands. Every alien delegate had gone silent. Even the High Speaker's crystalline body seemed to freeze mid-shift, refracting the threat into jagged shards of color. In that heavy quiet, Elias could feel his own heartbeat, slow and deliberate, like boots marching across old concrete. He had no weapon, no backup, no authority here. Yet every gaze was pinned to him as if humanity's next breath would determine the fate of every world in the chamber. The hologram magnified the lead vessel of the unknown fleet. Its hull was carved with sharp geometric patterns, each symbol pulsing with a deep internal glow, as if the ship itself were alive. A familiar hum built in the air, the same frequency that Earth defense systems used when preparing to intercept foreign scans. A council technician, shaking violently, spoke first. High Speaker, the alien vessels are attempting a full-spectrum neural sweep. They are probing your minds. Delegates recoiled. One collapsed. Another slammed protective plating over its face. A telepathic species in the upper row screamed as its antennae sparked with uncontrolled feedback. The High Speaker's voice cracked in outrage. This is a violation of every interstellar treaty. Elias' jaw tightened. Neural sweeps were no small threat, they were weapons aimed not at bodies, but at the will. The hologram flickered again as Earth's orbit lit in response. Defense satellites rotated in perfect synchronization, forming a shimmering grid that cast soft blue lights over the continents. The Earth Defense Network transmitted another warning, this time sharper, colder, stripped of any ceremonial politeness. Unknown fleet, you have initiated unauthorized scanning. Cease immediately. If you continue, we will respond with force. The High Speaker turned slowly toward Elias. Your world will doom itself. You cannot challenge a species you do not understand. Elias felt the cold air tighten around his ribs. Then exhaled. We understand enough. Someone who scans minds without asking is afraid of what he might find. A murmur rippled through the chamber. One silver-skinned delegate whispered, humans answer fear with defiance. How do they survive themselves? The answer came without Elias having to speak it. The hologram showed the unknown fleet intensifying their sweep, beams spreading wide like nets cast over oceans. For a moment, it appeared Earth's defenses were holding. Then a low rumble echoed. A tremor shook the council floor. The copper-skinned guard stumbled. The alien sweep is penetrating our outer detection web. If it continues, it will reach the Council's databanks. Delegates panicked. A feathered ambassador clamped its wings around its head. A serpentine dignitary slithered backward behind a force field. But Elias watched the hologram closely, eyes narrowing. The fleet scans were not aimed at Earth alone. They were aimed at the Council itself. Whatever these ships wanted, it was not conquest. It was information. Something about that realization hit Elias like cold metal water. The unknown fleet did not fear Earth's military. They feared something Earth knew. Or something Earth had done. A blinding flash burst across the hologram as Earth suddenly unleashed countermeasures. Not weapons. But interference pulses. They distorted the neural sweep into static. The entire council chamber buzzed as the attacks were choked off mid-wave. A technician gasped. The sweep is destabilizing. They are losing control. Elias murmured, almost to himself, they pushed too fast. Without warning, the unknown fleet's lead ship shuddered violently. Its glowing sigils flickered. The energy buildup froze, stalled, then collapsed in a shockwave that rippled outward. The council chamber's hologram warped from the force. Several delegates screamed. One shouted, their weapon is going critical. Elias' hands clenched. He recognized that energy pattern. Not a weapon. A reactor overload. The fleet was collapsing inward. The lead ship exploded in a silent burst of fractured light, scattering molten debris across the void above Earth. The remaining vessels panicked, engines flaring, trying to break orbit. But Earth was faster. Defense satellites pivoted. Shield harmonics surged. The atmosphere glowed bright blue as debris burned up. In the Galactic Council chamber, no one spoke. No one moved. They had watched an unknown enemy disintegrate its own flagship. They had watched Earth hold its ground without firing a shot. The high speaker staggered backward, crystalline limbs rattling. Human, what kind of world are you? Elias kept his eyes on the fading hologram, shoulders squared, voice steady as stone. The kind that survives storms you cannot imagine. He looked up at the trembling rows of delegates, realizing something important. For the first time, they were not looking at him with contempt. They were looking at humanity with something far more dangerous. Respect. The hologram blinked. New signatures appeared. Something else was coming from faster than light travel. And whatever it was, Earth detected it 3 seconds before the Council did. The moment the new signatures appeared on the hologram, the temperature inside the Galactic Council chamber seemed to drop by several degrees, as if the air itself understood something far older and far more dangerous was arriving. The hologram expanded, flickering as the system struggled to process the faster-than-light distortion. Captain Elias Ward watched the incoming flashes of light streak across the dark void like white-hot spears. Delegates leaned forward, some trembling, some whispering, some silently praying to gods whose names humanity had never heard. The high speaker raised a crystalline hand. Identify the arriving vessels. The council technicians scrambled across glowing panels. Their voices cracked as they read the results. Signature origin, unknown. No match in the historical archives. Energy composition is unstable. Almost organic. The hologram finally sharpened, revealing 3 smaller vessels unlike anything in the chamber's database. They were sleek, elongated shapes made of semi-translucent material that refracted light like liquid opal. Their hulls pulsed in slow, steady waves, as if breathing. Elias narrowed his eyes. These were not warships. Not in the conventional sense. Yet the chamber itself hummed in discomfort whenever they moved. A faint reverberation shivered through the floor, like a tuning fork struck by an unseen hand. The silver-skinned delegate from earlier whispered in terror, "Those are not machines." The high speaker's voice fractured slightly. "No civilization builds like this." A new alert pinged across the chamber as the vessels transmitted a signal. It was not in any known language. Not words. Not data. A series of harmonics rolled through the holographic audio, low and resonant, like whale song echoing across the vacuum. The sound vibrated in the bones, not in the ears. Several delegates clutched their heads. One collapsed entirely. Elias stood rigid, feeling the frequency ripple straight through his chest. He had heard something like it once before. Years ago. On Europa. During an incident every file had been sealed on. A sealed memory pounded behind his ribs. The high speaker finally issued a command. Translate. Immediately. The technician struggled. The harmonics twisted and shifted like liquid metal trying to form words. The first decipherable fragment came through as a distorted whisper. We arrive for the echo. A second fragment emerged. The breach awakens. Delegates erupted again. Shouts, accusations, terror. The snake-like ambassador hissed and slammed shut its containment pod. A feathered diplomat cried out, "This is a harbinger warning. We must evacuate this sector." But Elias stayed steady. He knew that harmonics. He had heard something similar when his old task force discovered ruins buried beneath Europa's ice shelf. The ruins that were not ruins at all. The ruins that pulsed with something alive until they went dormant the moment sunlight touched them. And the thing his team uncovered had whispered one phrase through radio distortion. The echo will return. Elias' throat went dry. The high speaker turned its fractured gaze on him. Human, what is this? Your world's defenses reacted before ours. Explain how. The chamber held its breath. Elias felt the weight of every species pressing on him like gravity. He could lie. He could deny. But the truth had followed him for years. Because Earth saw something like those ships once before, he said quietly. Gasps erupted. The hologram zoomed in on the new vessels, their opal hulls shimmering with every breath they took. The technicians pulled archived Earth exploration reports and slammed into a red-coded, sealed file. Access restricted, high clearance only. Unseal it, the high speaker thundered. The Council AI refused. Access cannot be granted. File contains prohibited research. Delegates roared in outrage. What are humans hiding? Elias did not blink. Something we found under the ice. Something old. Something that should have been dead. The hologram flickered as the three opal vessels opened like petals blooming, revealing dark centers that pulsed with a faint blue glow. The technician's voice quivered. They are scanning the entire council. Elias' heart hammered. Not with fear. With familiarity. They are not scanning, he said. They are listening. The chamber fell silent. Deep, bone-level silent. Then, as if confirming his words, the vessel sent one unified harmonic that shook the entire structure. It translated into a single phrase. The echo has chosen. The hologram shifted to show Earth, isolated in a cone of scanning light. Delegates shouted. The high speaker demanded explanations. But Elias already understood. The opal vessels had come not for conquest. Not for war. But because something dormant had awakened when the unknown fleet triggered its neural sweep. Something that had been waiting inside the human signal network for years. Something Earth had touched first. Elias's breath steadied. They are not here to destroy us, he said. They are here to finish what began on Europa. Suddenly the chamber light surged. The opal vessels turned in perfect unison. And the cone of scanning light around Earth began to narrow. The cone of scanning light tightened around Earth on the hologram, shrinking from a wide halo to a narrow beam that pierced straight through the planet's atmosphere like a silent spear. Every delegate in the Galactic Council chamber froze, their bodies illuminated by the pulsing opal glow of the alien vessels as if the entire room had been submerged underwater. Captain Elias Ward felt the air thicken around him with a pressure that hummed in his bones. He recognized that sensation. The same faint vibration he had felt years ago through the soles of his boots when he stood on Europa's ancient ice shelf and heard something knock back from beneath the surface. The high speaker leaned forward, crystalline plates rattling with unease. Human representative, you will explain at once. Why does this unknown species focus entirely on your world? Elias did not answer immediately. He watched as the cone of light burrowed deeper, scanning continents, oceans, cities, then slowing as it hovered over a specific region of the northern hemisphere. The technicians gasped as sensor readouts surged into spikes. "They have located something," one muttered, barely above a whisper. Elias exhaled. "Of course they have." The hologram zoomed in automatically, centering on the exact coordinates. The Arctic Circle. The place where the sealed Europa file had originated. A serpentine ambassador hissed sharply. "Explain this, human, or your world will be placed under immediate council quarantine." Elias finally spoke. "This is not an attack. They are searching for resonance." "Resonance," a metallic-voiced delegate repeated. "Of what?" Elias felt the answer lodge in his throat, cold as the memory itself. Of something that woke when humanity stepped on frozen ground that was not meant to be disturbed. The chamber erupted in overlapping fear. Delegates demanded details. Some called for human containment. Others pleaded for immediate evacuation of the sector. The high speaker slammed its crystalline staff down, sending a shockwave through the chamber to restore order. "What exactly did your species awaken?" Elias stared at the shimmering opal vessels, feeling their harmonics vibrate deeper, more focused. "A signal," he said finally. "Not artificial. Not alive. Something in between." He saw flashes in his mind. His team on Europa. Ice cracking under their feet. A pulsating light beneath 5 miles of frozen crust. A whisper that fizzled through radio static, repeating just 3 words. "The echo returns." The technicians cried out suddenly as the vessels changed formation. "High speaker, the alien ships are preparing a harmonic surge." The hologram shook violently as concentric waves of light rippled from the vessels toward Earth. Delegates panicked. "They will shatter the human atmosphere. They intend to fracture the planet's crust. They seek destruction." Elias watched closely, jaw locking. "No. They are unlocking something." A cold hush fell across the chamber. The opal vessels aligned perfectly, their pulsating hulls glowing brighter, harmonics rising to a pitch that made the council floor tremble. Then the surge hit. Not Earth. The Arctic ice. The hologram magnified the moment the wave struck the polar region. The ice cracked open in a perfect circular pattern, kilometers wide, splitting like a great white eyelid slowly opening. A sphere of light rose from the fissure, suspended above the Arctic Ocean. It was smooth, metallic, and covered in the same geometric symbols that glowed on the opal ships. Delegates recoiled in horror. Another vessel. A weapon. A harbinger? Elias shook his head. He could barely breathe. He had seen drawings of that shape before, etched into the Europa ice caverns. "That is not a ship," he said. "It is a beacon." The technician screamed as their consoles overloaded. "The beacon is transmitting directly into the council network." Lights flickered. The hologram glitched. A voice, ancient and layered, echoed through the chamber, vibrating through metal, skin, and bone. "We have returned to the origin." The echo awakens in the human resonance. Delegates collapsed. Others scrambled behind barriers. The high speaker stared at Elias, its fractal body trembling. "Why humans? Why your kind? What resonance could your world possibly hold?" Elias lifted his eyes, the cold memory finally aligning with the present. "Because humans are not the origin." The chamber pulsed with fear. Elias continued, voice steady. "We are the descendants of something older. Something that lived here long before us. Something that vanished and left only echoes beneath the ice." The beacon above Earth flared, lighting the chamber in blinding white. The opal vessels responded in perfect harmony, sending another pulse through the void. Elias felt his chest tighten as understanding settled into place like a heavy stone. "They did not come for Earth," he whispered. "They came to see if their lost kin had awakened inside us." The hologram cracked as the beacon's next surge built to a crescendo. And then the chamber went dark. The blackout hit the Galactic Council chamber with a force that felt almost physical, as if the darkness itself had weight. The hum of suspended machinery fell silent. The shimmering force fields around the delegates vanished. Even the ambient glow from the chamber's crystalline walls faded into nothing. Captain Elias Ward stood perfectly still, feeling the sudden cold settle onto his skin like a thin frost. For a moment, there was no sound at all, only the faint ringing in his ears from the beacon's last surge. Then, one by one, terrified voices broke through the darkness. Power has been severed. This chamber is shielded from external interference. This should be impossible. What did the humans bring upon us? Elias ignored the panic. Instead, he focused on the subtle vibration that remained in the floor, a low, rhythmic pulse that seemed to echo in time with something inside his own chest. He recognized it. He had felt that same pulse on Europa, standing above an ice fissure that glowed with its own alien heartbeat. A flicker of pale blue light stuttered in the center of the room. Then another. And another. Slowly, the hologram system rebooted on emergency reserves, flickering to life like a failing candle. What it displayed made even the bravest delegates shrink back in terror. The beacon above Earth was no longer dormant. Its surface shifted, expanding and contracting like the diaphragmatic breathing of a living creature. Symbols carved into its shell rippled outward, lighting up the night sky above the Arctic. And as the hologram stabilized, a new entity appeared beside it, hovering in the void. At first, it looked like another opal vessel. But then it unfolded. Petals of luminous material peeled back, revealing a humanoid silhouette enveloped in shifting layers of radiant energy. The light dimmed just enough to outline a tall, slender figure with elongated limbs, a smooth crest where a human skull would be, and flowing patterns of luminescent markings trailing down its form like veins of liquid silver. Delegates gasped. A few fainted. One whispered in awe, "A sentinel." Another stumbled backward. Those have not been seen in hundreds of thousands of years. They were thought to be extinct. Elias' throat tightened. He had read about sentinels only in forbidden research logs. They were not rulers, not soldiers, not explorers. They were guardians. Shepherds of civilizations that predated recorded time. The sentinel raised its head, and though it had no visible eyes, every being in the chamber felt it looked directly into them. The hologram translated the first vocalization. A single, resonant phrase. The echo stirs within the human frequency. Chaos erupted instantly. This is confirmation. The humans have awakened a dormant lineage. They must be isolated before they trigger an extinction event. The high speaker slammed its crystalline staff onto the podium. The sound fractured the panic. Human representative, it demanded, voice shaking with something that might have been fear. What does this entity mean when it calls your species an echo? Elias stared at the sentinel on the hologram. His breathing slowed. He felt the pulse again in the floor, in his bones, in the base of his skull. It means humans carry something old, he said. Not in our technology. In us. A glass-skinned delegate recoiled. Genetic contamination. Elias shook his head slowly. No. Legacy. The lights flickered again, brighter this time. The sentinel lifted one arm and pointed directly at Earth. A new transmission vibrated through the chamber, its harmonics rising like a choir of stars collapsing into one voice. The seed endures. The echo remembers. The lineage wakes. Delegates cried out in fear. The high speaker's body shone with fractured, disordered light. This is impossible, it said. Humans evolved independently. Their biology is primitive. Elias closed his eyes for a moment as something deep inside him flickered awake, like a piece of himself he had never known was missing. Primitive does not mean empty, he whispered. Something buried wanted to survive. And it chose us. The hologram zoomed as the sentinel pressed both hands gently against the surface of the beacon. The Arctic sky illuminated with a luminous shockwave, not destructive, but Searching, reaching, calling. Earth's surface responded. Not technology. Not satellites. Humanity. The bioneural patterns of 8 billion minds shimmered faintly on the hologram, as if resonating with the pulse from the sentinel. The chamber shook. Not from attack. From awakening. Elias pressed a steady hand on the railing as realization settled into him with chilling clarity. The sentinel is not coming to destroy Earth, he said. It is coming to test us. Delegates recoiled. Test what? Elias lifted his eyes to the blinding brilliance radiating from the beacon. To see if humans can carry what their ancestors could not. The sentinel leaned closer to Earth. The beacon brightened. And the entire Galactic Council chamber began to glow in response. The Galactic Council chamber glowed with an eerie radiance, a rising shimmer that crawled along the crystalline walls like sunlight refracting under deep water. Delegates shielded their faces as the brilliance intensified, but Captain Elias Ward held his ground, watching the hologram overhead as the sentinel hovered beside the awakened beacon above Earth. The sentinel's energy coils twisted and pulsed, sending waves of harmonic light across the void. Those waves struck the beacon, passed straight through it, and traveled down into Earth's atmosphere as if searching for something buried beneath oceans, mountains, and human skin. The chamber vibrated with a resonance that made the air taste metallic, like the ozone haze after lightning strikes. The high speaker's voice trembled as cracks of fear splintered its crystalline throat. This cannot be happening. The lineage of the ancients was extinguished before our stars even formed. Elias did not look away from the hologram. Extinguished does not always mean gone, he said, feeling the pulse again in his bones. It was stronger now, almost like a second heartbeat laid beneath his own. Delegates across the arena clutched their heads, overwhelmed by the harmonics. A serpentine dignitary collapsed, its scales flashing erratically. A feathered envoy screeched, wings trembling as the resonance shook through its fragile frame. Shut it down, someone shouted. Sever the feed. But the chamber systems refused to obey, locked by an override the council had no authority to break. The beacon held them all inside its awakening like insects trapped beneath a glass. The sentinel moved suddenly. It extended one elongated arm toward Earth. The hologram zoomed in, revealing the Arctic sky flaring with manufactured auroras, bands of blue, violet, and silver. Danced across the atmosphere, forming intricate patterns that flickered like neural pathways. Earth's response was visible now through the sensor grid. 8 billion human minds, unaware of what was happening above them, created a faint but measurable bioneural hum. It spread across continents, surged through every city, pulsed through every mountain valley, and resonated faintly in every heartbeat. The technician stared in disbelief. Human consciousness is synchronizing, one whispered. Impossible, another said. No species can achieve a harmonic frequency without a central neural relay. Elias answered quietly. Humanity has won. The delegate snapped toward him. Where? In our instincts, Elias said. In the way humans run toward danger instead of away from it. In the way we rebuild what falls apart. That is not just biology. That is survival memory woven into our species. The high speaker's light flickered. You are suggesting humans were designed. Elias swallowed. He had avoided that truth for years, but the sentinel hovering above Earth made denial feel like a lie. Not designed, he said. Chosen. The hologram trembled as the sentinel's markings brightened. It opened both arms, and every opal vessel surrounding the beacon followed in perfect formation. A new surge of harmonics cascaded outward, deeper and more resonant. The chamber shook violently, several delegates fell to the floor. The translation system flickered, struggling to interpret the sentinel's layered message. Then the words formed, heavy and ancient, vibrating through every molecule in the room. Reveal the bearer. A wave of dread rippled across the delegates. What does that mean? What bearer? What are they seeking? Elias felt his breath catch. The sentinel was not scanning Earth for technology or artifacts. It was searching for a specific frequency. A specific consciousness. Someone on Earth. Or worse, something within someone on Earth. The light from the beacon flared again. The hologram zoomed in on an outline of the human bioneural field, and one strand, one single harmonic thread, shone brighter than all the rest. Elias' stomach dropped. The thread pulsed in perfect synchronization with the sentinel. The technicians gasped. "It has found a match," one whispered. "A direct resonance match. But where? What human is carrying this?" The harmonic thread blinked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then it snapped upward, tracing a path across the void in a direct line from Earth, straight to the center of the chamber. Elias felt the vibration lock onto him like a cold hand closing around his spine. The hologram confirmed it. The resonance thread pointed at him. 1,000 alien eyes widened in terror as the translation system delivered the Sentinel's next phrase. "The bearer stands before us." Silence. Stillness. Then an explosion of fear. Delegates recoiled. Some screamed. Some called for containment fields. Others backed away from Elias as if he carried a star-going supernova inside his chest. The high speaker staggered backward, crystalline limbs trembling. "Human, what are you?" Elias felt the pulse in his bones roar to life, synchronizing with the beacon, with the sentinel, with something ancient waking inside him. He finally understood the truth he had tried to bury since Europa. "I am human," he said. "And something inside me has been waiting a very long time to be found." The sentinel turned toward him. The beacon flashed again. And the light in the chamber surged to blinding white. The blinding white radiance filled the Galactic Council chamber like a tidal wave of light, swallowing every shadow and every sound until the delegate seemed suspended inside a star. Captain Elias Ward felt heat prickling across his skin, an electric warmth that moved not over him but through him, threading along his nerves like liquid fire. The resonance inside his chest pulsed in perfect time with the beacon above Earth, as if an ancient rhythm had finally found its missing drumbeat. When the light faded enough to see, the delegate stared at him with expressions that ranged from horror to stunned fascination. Some cowered behind their collapsed podiums. Others pointed shaking fingers at him as if identifying a monster wearing human skin. Elias remained where he stood, breath steady, eyes fixed on the hologram that showed the sentinel outside Earth's orbit. The sentinel's luminous body had shifted, light cascaded down its form in steady, deliberate waves like a ritual. It raised one elongated hand. The beacon responded instantly, emitting threads of blue-white light that stretched toward Elias through the hologram interface, skipping every barrier and shield the chamber normally controlled. The high speaker's voice cracked, its crystalline plates vibrating violently. "Step away from the human. This is an activation ritual. He is being claimed." Elias did not move. The resonance inside him responded to the beacon's call, a deep, instinctive hum that vibrated in his bones like the echo of something older than memory. "He is dangerous." A serpentine delegate shrieked. "Contain him before he destabilizes the chamber." A dozen containment drones dropped from the ceiling, their magnetic emitters spinning up to form a restraining field. But when the field activated, the drones shuddered violently, sparked, and fell to the floor as if crushed by an invisible force. The delegates recoiled in panic. "He is resisting containment without moving. This is impossible, humans have no psionic capacity." Elias felt a cold sweat on his palms as he stared down at them. "I am not doing anything," he said, voice low. "Something else is." The hologram flickered as the sentinel extended both arms toward Earth. A new harmonic surged outward, deeper and heavier than the ones before. The chamber's metal floor responded like a struck tuning fork. Sparks danced along the walls. Crystals cracked. The high speaker shouted over the rising hum. "Human Elias Ward, you will answer now. What resides within you?" Elias shook his head slowly. "I wish I knew." The technician screamed as new data flooded their scanners. "The resonance inside the human is expanding. His neural frequencies are synchronizing with the sentinel. This is a genetic activation sequence." The words hit the chamber like a detonation. Delegates scrambled away from him, some shielding their faces, others activating emergency protocols that immediately failed as the resonance disrupted their systems. Elias felt his knees buckle for a moment under the weight of the pulsing energy, but he forced himself upright. Images flashed in his mind, not memories, but impressions. Stars swirling in patterns no human had ever charted. Luminous beings weaving energy into shapes that were neither machines nor life forms. A planet covered in oceans of silver light. And a fall. A great fall. He gasped, clutching the railing as the vision receded. "I saw them," he whispered. "The ones who left the echoes behind." The high speaker froze. "Describe them." Elias stared at the sentinel silhouette, the glow rippling across its elegant, elongated frame. "They were like that," he said. "But alive. Countless. And then something happened. They fractured. They scattered. And whatever they were, fell asleep inside us." "Inside humans," a gas-skinned delegate wheezed. "That cannot be correct." Elias looked down at his hands, trembling as the resonance lit the veins beneath his skin with faint silver glimmers. "It is not correct," he said. "It is true." The chamber shook violently as the beacon fired another pulse into the void. The translation system barely kept up. "Bearer confirmed." A second pulse. "Legacy intact." A third, heavier than the others. "Initiate convergence." Panic exploded across the chamber. "Convergence? That is a planetary reformatting protocol. It will rewrite whatever lineage it targets. Stop the Sentinel before it reaches Earth's surface." Elias felt a cold wave wash through him as he connected the final dots. The Sentinel did not come to destroy Earth. It came to determine whether humanity was strong enough to carry an inheritance. And if humanity was not, the Sentinel would overwrite them with what came before. The high speaker pointed a shaking crystalline limb at him. "Human Elias Ward, if you are the bearer, you must command it to stand down." Elias's voice broke. "I do not know how." The hologram went white as the Sentinel descended toward Earth. Harmonics screamed through the chamber. The beacon flared. And the resonance inside Elias surged, roaring like a star waking from extinction. The resonance inside Captain Elias Ward surged with a force so fierce it felt as if his ribs might crack from the pressure, as if his very bones were being tuned by a cosmic hand. The Galactic Council chamber trembled under the weight of the Sentinel's descending harmonics, every crystalline beam vibrating like a struck instrument. The hologram flickered back to life long enough to show the Sentinel lowering toward Earth, its luminous form unfolding like a celestial blade. The Arctic sky split open with columns of silver light. The beacon pulsed in massive concentric rings, each wave pushing deeper into the human bioneural grid. Delegates screamed. Some fell to their knees. Some covered their heads. Others backed away from Elias as if proximity alone might rewrite their DNA. The high speaker pointed at him with a trembling crystalline arm. "Human Elias Ward, command it to stop before the convergent sequence begins. Your species will be overwritten." Elias steadied his breathing, forcing air into lungs that felt too tight. "I told you," he said, voice strained, "I do not know how." The resonance roared again inside him, rising like a tidal surge, locking onto the Sentinel's signal. The hologram zoomed in on Earth. The auroras above the Arctic had grown brighter, swirling in impossible geometric shapes, spiraling into a vortex of silver and violet light that stretched across the atmosphere. "A council technician's voice cracked as he read the readings. Human consciousness levels rising across all continents. Neural harmonics stable but rapidly intensifying. The Sentinel is preparing phase 2 of convergence." Delegates erupted in panic. "He is triggering it. Contain him. Stop the bearer before he destroys us all." A force field snapped to life around Elias as drones attempted to restrain him, but the moment the field touched the resonance surrounding his body, it shattered like glass. The explosion of broken energy hurled the drones backward. The high speaker stumbled away. He is not controlling the power. The power is controlling him. Elias clenched the railing until the metal bent under his hands. His vision blurred with flashes of ancient memories that were not his own, entire civilizations of luminous beings moving in harmony, manipulating energy with thought alone, shaping worlds with gentle precision, guiding younger species with patience instead of fear. And then the fall. A great catastrophe. A collapse that scattered their essence through the stars like seeds carried by cosmic winds. The echoes were fragments of what they once were. And humanity was one of the places where those fragments had taken root. Not a clone. Not a descendant. A continuation. I understand, Elias whispered. I understand why they chose us. The Sentinel hovered over Earth, its elongated hands pressing against the atmosphere, sending ripples of shimmering light across the sky. The translation system crackled and delivered a single phrase. Prepare to inherit. Delegates shrieked. Inheritance means extinction for the previous form. They will overwrite the human genome. This cannot be allowed. Elias shut his eyes, heart pounding, resonance burning through him. The Sentinel's harmonics flooded his mind with meaning. They were not trying to destroy humanity. They were trying to restore themselves through humanity. But humanity was not empty space waiting to be filled. Humanity was already full of flaws, yes, but also of hope, will, love, defiance. Elias straightened slowly, lifting his head. I am the bearer, he said quietly. So if anyone speaks for humanity, it is me. The resonance surged, brighter and louder than ever. The hologram showed the Sentinel's descent slowing. The beacon paused mid-pulse. The chamber gasped. Elias took one step forward, and the entire council chamber vibrated as if responding to him directly. His voice cut through the harmonic storm. We honor what came before us, he said. But we are human. We do not yield our identity. We do not surrender our will. And we do not accept an inheritance that costs us who we are. The Sentinel's glow flickered. The beacon dimmed, just slightly. Delegates stared in disbelief. Elias lifted his chin. If you seek a species strong enough to carry your legacy, choose us as we are. The resonance inside him erupted outwards, a shockwave of silver-blue light that collided with the Sentinel's harmonics. The hologram blazed. The beacon shuddered. The convergence field shattered like thin ice. The Sentinel reeled back, stabilizing its form as it processed what had happened. And then, for the first time, its voice carried uncertainty. Bearer rejects convergence. Elias breathed once, steady and firm. I choose humanity. The Sentinel paused. The beacon dimmed further. The harmonics softened into a low, contemplative hum. Then the translation system spoke one final phrase. Legacy deferred. Humanity remains. The Sentinel turned away from Earth, folding back into its opal vessels. The beacon gently lowered itself into the Arctic Ocean, sinking beneath the waves like a stone of light. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent. Elias exhaled, exhausted but standing tall. And in that trembling quiet, one truth echoed through the chamber like a vow. Humans did not become what the ancients were. Humans remained what they had always been. And somehow, that was enough.